We are at that life cycle of our business where we've built the tech and we are now doing the last mile of productizing it. And education is a key focus area for us. Already it's getting good enough traction where it's beginning to prove that education as a vertical and augmented and I thought what better place to talk about it than here.
Right. Well, actually, what we should do is we should back up a little bit and just, for those of you in the room who aren't familiar with Blipper, let's talk a little bit about the product and what it does and where it's come from, where it is now, and where it's going to next. Just let's get to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. So we started Blipper almost like 6.5 years ago with a vision that we want to create this universal visual browser which can recognize anything and everything, so that anyone who's curious about the world they're looking at, they can get additional content. Initially, we started really sort of brand heavy, working with a lot of marketing and brand companies using something called image recognition technology. That wasn't really taking us nearer to a vision of making the whole world into an interactive platform. So only last 3-4 years, we massively invested in an AI-based deep learning framework, which really made this a reality. So today, we are at a stage where we can recognize like hundreds of millions of things, and it is available for anyone to take it in and add a layer of content on top of it. But you might think that, hey, why is this like really even useful? But you may not realize that though in the internet evolution, we've been using browsers and apps, which has been great, but they're all very words heavy. You should try it for yourself. You'll see hundreds and thousands of things in your everyday life, which even the educated people cannot describe it with their vocabulary. So we are predicting the next era of computing is going to be very visual heavy and natural language heavy, not just keyboard-based interfaces where you input words. And we want to play a significant role in that moving forward.
Well, I suppose actually one of the first sort of manifestations of that new world has been Alexa, the Alexa, the voice from Amazon's Echo. Do you think that we're moving into a place where it's going to be very visual? Alexa becomes effectively recognizing you as well. There is a certain amount of that going on. The Amazon show, I gather, can actually recognize you a little bit, can't it?
Yeah, Amazon has aspects of it where it's, Amazon's still core behavior to integrate everything with shopping. Shopping is still a vertical of our life, it's not our life. So it's doing already some prototypes along the lines of recommending you outfits based on the outfits you're wearing. And so some level of preliminary machine vision.
What do you think of what they're doing? Do you think you're impressed by it?
It's okay. Let's put it this way. In the natural language processing world, you can compare it to your own senses, right? So right now you are hearing my and Mike's voice, but there are still like hundreds and thousands of points of distraction to your eyes. So vision as a sense is much like a primary sense, and it has a lot more points than an audio signal. So the technology complexity of vision is way bigger than technology complexity of understanding audio signals. So in this very maturity curve, you will, like if you use the analogy of all the senses we have, even our brain processing touch is a much simpler thing to vision. That's why in computing, touch became first, it was simpler. The next evolution, it's like only 5% of our brain uses audio capability. So next was natural language, and our brain uses like 38% its brain power to process the visual world. And even from a computing point of view, it's equally complex. So that curve will come, eventually, but it's hard for everybody. And everybody who shows, so Amazon is only showing clothes because it's a simpler problem to solve, but on a universal level, it's still very complex for all of us.
So, I mean, bringing it around to the big issue of the conference about education, I gather you just did a project with the Royal British Legion, using AR to tell stories from the First World War. People could point their smartphone camera at a pin or something.
At the poppy.
The poppy pin. That's right. Pin. Yeah. So you point your smartphone at the pin using the Blipper app, and then it would put them into an immersive view of a muddy trench from the First World War.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, there's a business model of that you do that, but tell us a little bit about how you think that could be used in an education sense.
Sure. I'll give you a real example. Today, I think around 24 to 30,000 educators and schools are working with us, and including on the publishing side like Pearson and a few more. One of the important things we're noticing is, and this is a hypothesis, it's not a proven medium yet because we need a lot more data points, but we're noticing that kids, again, most of them are very visual learners, and STEM education particularly, which can be mundane how it's taught, already we're noticing where certain lessons are augmented as an A/B test. Let's say the lesson of geometry, and how do you calculate the volume of a pyramid? If you point your iPad on the lesson and literally a pyramid comes out, and then it explains you how do you calculate the volume, the retentive nature of the kid was like much longer than reading that same lesson. So
the visual stimulation means that they learn faster and they remember it.
They remember it,
right.
Because it was not just a two-dimensional hand-drawn diagram. And
also they get to use an iPad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the second part of it, I almost feel in ancient education styles where your teacher was everything, was a life philosopher, the era of Aristotle, where kids were taught about philosophy, about life, and about the environment immediately. So I feel computer vision can really drive that curiosity, because kids by nature are curious. That hey, what's that chair? Or this spoon I'm looking at, the spoon you're eating from, is that just a spoon, or there's a stainless steel in it? There's an aspect of pig iron. Then there's a history of spoon. You can just look at the most mundane things in the world. You might be, as grown-ups, might find it mundane, but youngsters, they go through this concept called knowledge graph, where every piece of information in the world is connected to something else. It's an incredible way to hop, so you can, and some of them even play games that who can go from like ceramic plate to Barack Obama in 12 steps, right? Because every piece of information in the world is connected. So we are seeing, part of our role is to throw it out there and observe which paths are working really well with educators, because they're all domain experts. And for us to just keep providing the tech. So we have a sort of a platform called Blip Builder. It's like very easy to use. Doesn't require any coding skills. Even like a 7-8-year-old kids are using it. And our goal is to make it as simple as possible for educators and kids to get into the AR curve.
What are some of the other kinds of applications you think that it could be used for in education? I mean, for instance, we saw the rise of the rise and slight fall to some extent of Pokemon Go, where you're running around looking for virtual items. Would you consider that to be augmented reality as well, by the way, or is it sort of gamified AI?
No, it was gamified AR. I think it served its purpose. The AR part of the PR story made it very AR, but the AR part of the game was the least used because it consumed your battery. But it was, I would say, it did a lot for the industry in general, for the awareness of it. But I would say in reality, like augmented reality would be like a lot bigger than what the manifestation happened in with Pokemon.
But you've been actually, I think, have you unveiled something here, or are you about to?
No, tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
yeah, tomorrow in the plenary we'll show something exciting and almost like a whole new way of presentation.
Can you give us a hint?
No hints. Just
No
tomorrow,
hints?
like hey.
Okay, well, it's just us. There is a journalist at the back. Oh yeah, and I'm a journalist. I forgot about that. What other things do you think are going on? I mean, Microsoft released what's the future of some of this stuff? Microsoft released HoloLens, and and then there's Magic Leap, which hasn't properly launched yet. We've had a little bit of previews of it. The HoloLens, I think, when it first came out, was a little bit, actually, the videos about HoloLens were amazing. You're standing there, you're looking at a skeleton, and then I'm sure you've tried one, right? And you put this on, and actually, it's really not that great. It's kind of disappointing. And then Magic Leap hasn't appeared yet, and yet people say it's going to be incredible, and they're literally going to project images onto the back of your eyeball. It sounds super sci-fi, but these things are kind of cumbersome, aren't they? And yet, the ease of an AR app on your phone, to some extent, still hasn't really taken off, has it? What do you think is going to move the needle? Is it going to be a Magic Leap, or a better HoloLens, or an app, or?
So, first of all, I personally believe that though when people are talking about augmented reality, a lot of emphasis is being given to hardware players. But in reality, in your everyday life, I still feel software is what drives adoption. People will forget about the hardware. Like okay, there's a bit of a buzz that what's my latest phone, but your entire purpose of your phone's existence is based on the app store and the utility you get out of the software. So I think we have to almost treat the Magic Leaps and the HoloLenses of the world as a shell. And their challenge is to make the display and the processing and the ecosystem for companies like us to wanting to work with them and make their products more attractive. And that's the challenge in their hand, which is something I would say like Apple and Google do a phenomenal job of. And I don't think the conversation will change much, even if you have the coolest head-mounted device today invented, unless the content makers are excited and they make it very easy and accessible. So we as a business, we've taken a strategy to generally keep our one foot into the future. So we work with pretty much every wearable computing platform just to see the compatibility aspect of it. We realistically know none of them even have 5,000 users, so it's early days. But at the same time, the universal device still is the phone, and it's going to be there for quite some time. And there's a lot of incredible innovation happening in the phone camera itself. Like now, camera is a company inside phone company. It's like almost the most important department. The VP of camera probably makes the highest salary these days.
Inside Apple and
everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Samsung.
So I think we will see. We're just predicting inside 24 months period, first generation of native AR capabilities going into on an operating, if not operating system, certainly on a device level. Yeah, that's what I'm predicting. So phone is still going to remain a little more dominant form factor. And even if Magic Leap creates the most killer thing one has ever seen, what's the learning curve? Like today, you can do anything on the internet because the common factor in the internet is JavaScript and HTML. So where's the standardization in AR? And we are being, as a company, very vocal about it, that today we are all competing in silos. So we took the first step, and we haven't been able to convince everybody. So we made our entire code reverse compatible with front-end technologies of the web. So anybody who knows how to code in JavaScript and HTML can code in AR today. So there's like 20 million coders in the world can jump into this curve. But we're talking to everybody else that let's standardize it rather than create our own custom languages, because that's what's creating the barrier. The barrier is not the users are ready, the barrier is us all giving up proprietary technologies and saying we are the best. That's not going to work forward.
We're going to do some Q&A shortly, but I wanted to ask you guys, hands up if you've tried VR. Right? Pretty much most of you. Hands up, keep your hand up if you've done it regularly in the last couple of months. 2. There you go. So VR is still very early days, isn't it, to some extent? What extent surely that Apple, aren't you worried that Apple and Google and Samsung, etc., will effectively take some of the ideas that you got? Just swinging back to education again, I mean, you know, kids can get a kind of a wow factor by, you know, using the Blipper app.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've seen teachers doing with it that makes it interesting for you?
Yeah, I mean, teachers today are doing a lot of lesson plans. You know, I've seen, even last night I tweeted about it. Like, we discover about our own stuff from the internet all the time. And like, teachers are creating great content where a typical classroom has like verbally lessons being imparted, but most classrooms have a lot of visual features like anatomy of the human body, the solar system, like typical, all that stuff, and a lot of them are augmenting all those things which comes out in the three-dimensional space. So I saw a very good example of a teacher explaining the concept of revolution and rotation, where when you use your phone, the child becomes the sun, and all the planets revolve around him in the room. And even then the planets have their own sub-satellites which revolve around the planet. So you're almost experiencing solar system. Not only are you learning what you can interact with all those planets, but you're also understanding the concept of motion and elliptical path and all. But this was a teacher's idea, and students love it, but they use the tool. So, you know, we almost like that sort of Photoshop of AR, where I'm not going to teach, I'm going to just teach you to enhance your own creativity and imagination, but we're not going to be the one who'll be creating the content for you.
And that's, I'm sure, like, teachers and the kids probably come up with uses that you might even be completely surprised at.
Everything, even like the puppy example, you like, we had like nothing to do with it, just technology.
It just got built.
Yeah,
amazing. Has anyone got any questions actually for Rick while we got him here? Yes, sir. Go ahead.